Hello, everyone. I am AnneHumphrey, as you already know. This is the Science of Getting Rich Mindset and Mastermind group. Today is it's 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is December 6th, 2019. And as I always like to do, first let me start off by saying to all my YouTubers, be sure to subscribe to the All Show page. Just click the button below and hit the little bell so you will know when we will go live. And to all my Facebookers, please be sure to share the YouTube video, because once I am done with this live video, I will upload it and put it on Facebook. And to all my Instagrammers, you guys are amazing. I don't know what's going on over there in the water, over there at Instagram, but you guys look, you guys share, and you guys also make comments. So I thank you for the love. And to all my Twitterers, be sure to follow the All Show as well and continue to retweet. So listen, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I am excited. I am thrilled. I just could not wait for this day. I have a very special guest. I mean, someone that I believe will make a lasting impression. And as you already know, this is the series of Conversations in Transformation with yours truly, AnneHumphrey. And today we're going to be discussing none other than Mr. Wallace D. Wattles. Wallace D. Wattles, The Science of Getting Rich. And the chapter that we're going to pull back the layers, we're going to uncover, we're going to discover, we are going to do it all with you guys today, and I'm going to have one of the, I would say, one of the world's favorite leaders, one that I had the pleasure, guys, of coming across. Only thing I can tell you is that you've got to stay tuned, because this is going to be good. And what we're going to discuss today is Chapter 5. Chapter 5, as I always like to do, none of this belongs to me nor my special guest. This all belongs to Mr. Wallace D. Wattles. Wallace D. Wattles. So we will be speaking about Chapter 5, Increasing Life, and we're going to pull back the layers. So before I bring out my very special guest, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you a little bit about him, just to whet your appetite. His name is Mr. John Shaw. Most people call him Elder 360. And when you meet him, you will understand why. I mean, this man is a powerful human being. He is making a difference right here, not only in Florida, but he is making a global difference. His primary aim, his primary mission is to reintroduce universal physics to all the people here on planet Earth. Now, let me tell you some of the things that he teach, and one of the reasons why I just had to have him on this show, because in my mind, I believe that he is a brother to Mr. Wallace D. Wattles, and I believe that his soul and his spirit was already here way back during the time when Mr. Wallace D. Wattles himself was here. And anybody who knows me, I love myself some Mr. Wallace D. Wattles. But let me tell you about this gentleman, Mr. John Shaw. He teaches the willpower. He teaches vibrations. He teaches intelligence. He teaches the law of repetition. He teaches the law for every action there is a equal and opposite reaction. And he also teaches reincarnation, as well as how the universe was manifested. When I tell you this man is a bad man, I'm telling you, he is a force to be reckoned with. So without further ado, I know you guys are saying, well, hey, Ann, you keep talking about them, just bring them on, bring them on. Without further ado, will you guys please welcome Mr. John Shaw? Woo! Yes, yes. Oh, good. Come and join us, Mr. John Shaw. I mean, I am just so excited. Guys, you just don't know. This man is an incredible human being. And his whole plight is to as he says, reintroduce universal physics. So first, before we get into chapter 5, because this is what we're here about, Mr. Wallace D. Waddles, I want to share a little short story about how I first told John about the science of getting rich, okay? This is his book that I gave to him because I was like, okay.
My personal manual.
His personal manual, right?
I'll never get rid of it.
I had to take, John, you remember when I told you, I said, well, first of all, have you ever read The Science of Getting Rich? Or have you ever heard of Mr. Wallace D. Waddles? Never heard of him. But, ladies and gentlemen, as I said to you before, this man here, I believe that he is a brother from another mother with Mr. Wallace D. Waddles, okay? All right. So I'm telling you, you guys are in for a treat. So I'm just so honored. I'm so honored.
I'm honored to be on the art show. And I'm honored to be on the art show and to have the privilege to actually interchange and enlighten.
Absolutely.
Enlighten the public, so.
Absolutely.
We can't lose with the stuff we use.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to jump right on in. Again, this is the Conversations in Transformation with yours truly, AnneHumphrey, and guest moderator, Mr. John Shaw. Again, this work that we're speaking of is Mr. Wallace D. Waddles. We do not own the rights to his work. We are just here to uncover, discover, and unveil the truth and reveal the truth behind the science of getting rich. Again, Mr. Wallace D. Waddles, The Science of Getting Rich. Mr. Wallace D. Waddles, The Science of Getting Rich. And we're going to dive into chapter 5. Chapter 5, Increasing Life. Chapter 5, Increasing Life. So one of the first things that I like to do, John Shaw, I like to kind of go over a couple of passages, and I want to be able to find out some of the passages that you like, that resonated with you, and then I would like for you to be able to share, as I will too, what these passages mean, because we're uncovering it. Because a lot of people read this, they listen to the audio, and sometimes they're still not really too sure as to what, Mr. Wallace D. Waddles was trying to tell us, or what not trying to, but was telling us.
Right.
Absolutely. So one of the first passages that I love in Increasing Life is he starts, I like to say this, that Mr. Wallace D. Waddles comes out of the gate.
Out of the gate, straight to the point.
Straight to the point, ladies and gentlemen, straight to the point. And so one of the areas, just literally the second paragraph, it says the intelligent substance. Now listen to how Mr. Wallace D. Waddles put this. He says the intelligent substance, which is all and in all, and which lives in all and lives in you, is consciously living substance. Then he goes on to say, being a consciously living substance, it must have the nature and inherent desire of every living intelligence for increase of life. Every living thing must continually seek for the enlargement of its life, because life, in the mere act of living, must increase itself. What? My God. He said a mouthful, literally. Let me just show the people. This is the second paragraph. The second paragraph right there. As you see, the intelligent substance right there. What is it that Mr. Wallace D. Wattles was saying here? How would you break that down?
Okay. Intelligence is an entity like everything else in the universe is an entity.
Mm-hmm.
The way I was taught and what makes me coincide, what I was taught coincide with Wallace D. Wattles is this. The vision of a creation must exist before the creation itself. Mm-hmm. And it takes intelligence to create a vision.
Okay.
So intelligence itself is a living, creating substance.
Okay.
It's an individual thing, right? Mm-hmm. Now, unawareness always has to exist before awareness. Every form of intelligence that exists was unaware at first. So that shows it's in a state where it must learn, it must increase, because what it does, it creates ideas, visions, plans, anything that comes from a thought. Intelligence is what formulates the thought and the vision. So without the information, the intelligence wouldn't be able to create the thought. So there is a must that it increase in knowledge, increase in wisdom, and understanding automatically.
So let me ask you this. When Mr. Wallace D. Wattles says the intelligent substance, which is all,
definitely,
and in all, mm-hmm. and which lives in all and lives in you, mm-hmm. is consciously living substance. What does he mean by that? That one statement.
Okay, what he's saying, what it is living in us, it's the same thing that the Creator is, that lives in us. Mm-hmm. Okay, let me say it like this. It's a simplified. Everything that exists in the same image and likeness has the same basic functioning. So one form of intelligence has the same basic functionings as another form of intelligence. Mm-hmm. So the intelligence outside of us function the same way the intelligence does on the inside of us. It must reason, think, make decisions, create ideas and visions, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's impossible. This is why I agree with it. It's impossible to find two things that look alike and is alike that doesn't have the same basic functionings. So the intelligence that's living within us has the same basic functioning as intelligence outside of us.
So then let me ask you this, John. Mm-hmm. I mean, based on what you have already read, what is an area in chapter 5? Could you read an area in chapter 5 mm-hmm. where what resonated with you most? Read it to us, what Mr. Wallace D. Wattles said, what he wrote in chapter 5, and then explain why it resonates and what you are doing in your current life.
Okay.
So let's read an area.
Okay, the first thing it says here, say, you must get rid of the last facet of the old idea that there is a deity whose will is it that you should be poor. Mm-hmm. And it say whose purpose may be served by keeping you in poverty. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, what stands out with me about that is this.
And that's the first paragraph, ladies and gentlemen. First paragraph.
It says that we should feed the hungry, mm-hmm. clothe the naked, mm-hmm. and give shelter. Give shelter to the homeless, feed the hungry, and clothe the naked. Mm-hmm. So how can we give shelter, feed people, or clothe people if we have nothing? Mm-hmm. to do it? Mm-hmm. So that lets you know if that is the demand for us to do those things, that we must have the resources to do it. So it's a natural and normal thing for us are for the Creator to want us to have more, because they are commanding us to do these things, and we can't do them without finance.
Absolutely. And you have to be, as Mr. Wallace D. Wattles says all the time in his book, he says, get rich. Get rich. And one of the things, and I'm glad that you mentioned this first paragraph, is because, like he says, you must get rid of the last vestige of the old ideas that there is a deity whose will it is that you should be poor. See, how many times you have heard people who every time you look around, they have this mentality or mindset. Yeah, they have this mentality or mindset that it's the Christian thing to do to be poor.
Exactly.
How many times have you heard that?
It's countless of times.
You know, so listen, ladies and gentlemen, this is the reason why I love this book so, because there are so many people that are walking around here that truly believe that there is a deity that wants them to be poor.
That's right.
You know, and that it's a sin to be rich.
Exactly. You know something else too? When you look at creation, you can't count the diamonds that the Creator created. You can't count the valuable stones, the things that's in the earth that is valuable. You know, so therefore, that's they say you can see the character of God by studying His creation. And if you study creation, you can see He has abundance.
Of course,
you know?
Abundance and prosperity.
And created abundance for His creation to enjoy.
Absolutely.
You know, so that's the conclusion that you come to when you really study creation and you see His character.
Well, let me go back in chapter 1, because you just spoke something. In chapter 1, Mr. Wallace D. Wattles, to kind of like, piggyback on what John Shaw just said, Mr. Wallace D. Wattles, in chapter 1, The Right to be Rich, he specifically says, a man's highest happiness is found in the bestowal of benefits on those he loves. Love finds its most natural and spontaneous expression in giving. The man who has nothing to give cannot feel his place as a husband.
That's right.
Or father, as a citizen, or as a man. It is in the use of material things that a man finds full life for his body, develops his mind, and unfolds his soul. It is therefore of supreme importance to him that he should be rich. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, listen, this is right here. I mean, you see it, it's the last paragraph right there. It is important that you see that, because this is in chapter 1. And it is, and I'm glad that you said that, because it is his desire. It is the desire. Absolutely. Exactly. Absolutely. So let me share with you another passage that, again, because the reason I call this Conversations in Transformation is because I understand that, you can read something, you could read it all your life, and you still don't really understand what it means.
To get every detail, every angle out of it.
Absolutely. And so this is the reason why I call this Conversations in Transformation, because I know that there are other people like you out there who may be reading or have already read The Science of Getting Rich and just probably still putting the puzzles together, because this is the reason why Mr. Wallace D. Wattles says, make this book your companion. Exactly. You have to make this book your companion. You must study it daily. This is not a joke, ladies and gentlemen.
This is a great manual.
It is a fantastic. Bible. Absolutely. As I tell everybody, my first book is the Bible, and the second book for me is The Science of Getting Rich. But here's the second area. He says, in order to know more, do more, and be more, we must have more.
Have more. Yeah.
We must have things to use. See, that goes back to what I just read to you in chapter 1. He says we must have things to use, for we learn and do and become only by using things. We must get rich so that we can live more. I think that's self-explanatory.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
What do you have to say, Elder 360?
Well, something brief. Something brief. How many times do we wake up and don't have to use something?
Yeah. Okay.
You know, it's impossible not to need something to use. You know, so it's like a natural and normal procedure of life. You know, that we got to use things. How many things people use today? You know, so that's the way I like to look at things. You know, from the natural way things happen, the way Wallace D. Wattles has in his book. You know, like the mechanics of things. So it's impossible to get around life without using something. You know, so you gotta have money. Okay, for instance, a person without money and a person with money. If I wanted to catch a plane, I didn't have no money. I can't catch that plane. If I wanted to buy a gold mine or whatever, in order to purchase it, I must have something to trade, right? And most people move off of money rather than a promise, you know? So I agree with Wallace D. Wallace. You know, you must get rich in order to enjoy the best things that life has to offer.
And the key is, ladies and gentlemen, is that there is a science to this.
Science.
There is a science to this, ladies and gentlemen.
Way of thinking.
And this is the thing. The reason why this book is so, to me, like I said, the first book for me is the Bible, and then this book is second, because we were never taught in no school and no education, not in church, not in the public schools I went to. Maybe in your public schools, maybe they're teaching you the science, but it wasn't in my upbringing. And and thank God I had parents that were entrepreneurs, but it was not taught to me that there is a science to getting rich. So let's continue. Now you pick an area, because this here is where I'm going to dive deep over here. But what other area would you like to share?
About chapter 5, about the
read the area.
About the formless substance. Hold up, let me find this.
Okay, so while he's looking for that, I have another area. Wallace D. Wattles began to speak about, it is the desire of God that you should get rich. See, ladies and gentlemen, this is why you know what? Okay, so let me just step back. I said this to you, John, that to me in chapter 1 and chapter 2, it's like Mr. Wallace D. Wattles, and in my mind, I feel as though I know him, even though I've never had the opportunity of meeting Mr. Wallace D. Wattles, but in my mind, I feel like I have, because I love me some Wallace D. Wattles. Okay, but in chapter 1 and chapter 2, I truly believe that it's almost like he was giving it to, like, spoon feeding us, like hey, I'm not gonna, little at a time, right?
Precept by precept, line by line.
Absolutely, right? And then in chapter 3 is where I believe the seat belts were off, Everything was off. It's like in your face. It is time to get to work, because that's when he started talking about is opportunity monopolized. And then from there on, in my belief, at least for me, the traction just got higher and higher and higher. And so in this particular area where he says it is the desire of God that you should get rich. It is God's desire that you should get rich. He then says he wants you to get rich because he can express himself better through you.
Exactly.
If you have plenty of things to use in giving him expression. He can live more in you if you have unlimited command of the means of life. So let's talk about that. His desire, it's God's desire that you should be rich.
Yeah, to say it again, if you send somebody out to save the world or to help people, basically you got to send them out with things that they need in order to help, physical, mental. They got to be ready, physical, mental, spiritual, and financial.
Absolutely.
You can't be lacking neither one of them, because they're really needed, automatic. So, and if we look at life and we ask ourselves the question, do we need physical strength or physical help in order to perform life? The answer is yes. So do you have to have your mind right, your mental faculties right, in order to execute properly? The answer would be yes. Do you have to have your spiritual, self in tune with that entity that governs the entire universe? The answer would be yes again.
So it is the desire of God that you should get rich.
In every way.
In every way. Every possible way. And that is the reason why we have to begin to transform the mindset of people who really truly believe this thing, this conditioning, that it's a sin to be rich and you're saved if you're poor. No, you cannot help anyone when you have, and poor can be in many forms, just like as John Shaw stated. You could have money in the bank, but you could have a poor mindset. You could have poor health. You know what I mean? Exactly. You could have a poor spiritual relationship. So, poor just doesn't mean, or rich just doesn't mean the tangible, money, dollars. But that does help. But I'm just saying, it's all forms.
It all goes together.
Absolutely. It all goes together. And here's another wowzer. And listen, ladies and gentlemen, I like to show, because it's important that you see this. I truly believe that when you see the vibration and you read it for yourself, it does something.
It resonates. It really paints a picture, of to give you instructions to how to think, also what to think, when to apply it.
Absolutely, absolutely, because it helps.
Yeah, definitely.
It definitely does. But let me show.
I recommend this to everybody. They should get with this from kindergarten. You know what I mean? Somebody saying.
Or reading it in the womb.
Yeah.
Reading. The mother's reading this book in the womb when she's carrying, because it's just that serious. And you are absolutely right. Let me just share this. The universe desire. He goes on to say, and this is again in my book. I've got a lot of wowzers, because listen, ladies and gentlemen, when I tell you that I am not playing, it's a whole heap of information in this. When I tell you I am not playing with this, this is nothing to play with. If you're really wanting to learn how to really get out of your own way and really be able to create the healthy mindset, so then you can really create from the formless substance, Mr. Wallace D. Wattles was ahead of his time. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, for all of you who may not be familiar, this book was written in 1910, over 100 years ago. He was way ahead of his time. But let me go back to this particular area. Right after that paragraph that I just read, another wowzer for me was, he says, the universe desires, now listen to this. He says, the universe desires you to have everything you want to have. Nature is friendly to your plans. Everything is naturally for you.
Definitely.
Make up your mind that this is true.
Exactly.
What do you have to say about that?
Well, I must say that he is correct. And it's like something else in the book that I read that came up in my mind that coincides with that is that if you are in harmony with the will of the Creator, if your plan is in harmony with the plan of the Creator, automatically what happens is that you position yourself to actually not fail. You know? Yeah, if it's in harmony with the Creator, it's got to be in harmony with all.
Well, when we know who the all is.
Right, exactly. So when you see that you are not really creating anything negative upon someone, and you're just willing and concentrating on positive things to happen.
But what does this message here, when he says the universe desires you to have everything you want to have, what would you say to that person, John, who says, I can't do it? I grew up poor. My mother, my father didn't have it. Everything is against me. The job is against me. Every time they look around, this person's against me. But he says the universe desires you to have everything you want to have. Nature is friendly to your plans. What do you say to that person who don't believe that the universe desires them to have everything?
Something real simple and straight to the point. Now, everything that manifests is after it's visualized, after it's a thought first. Mm-hmm. And everything in the universe, basically, that you see created by the Creator, was a vision. I mean, the stars, the sun, the moon, and no matter what it is. Mm-hmm. So the universe is friendly, if your thoughts are right. In other words, everything in the universe responds to your thought pattern.
Absolutely.
So if you are negative, if there's some negative things, that respond to you. If you're positive, the positive thing respond to you. Mm-hmm. So it's friendly either way you go. So the thing is that when we look at the fact that it's impossible to find anything created or made by any living thing mm-hmm. that wasn't visualized first, mm-hmm. impossible, then you'll say, well, everything must be a vision. Mm-hmm. And then when you look at the fact that it's impossible to find anything created or made by any living thing except change that doesn't have weight and occupy space, then you have to come to the conclusion that it's mind over matter.
So what would you say to the person that says, because again, sticking with Mr. Wallace D. Wattles, he says, everything is naturally for you. Make up your mind that this is this is true.
Make up your mind.
Make up your mind that this is true. Mm-hmm. So what would you say to that person? And let's stick to what Mr. Wallace D. Wattles says, that he says nature is friendly to your plans, everything is naturally for you, and make up your mind that this is true. What would you say to that person who just walks around and believes that everybody's against them, the world is against them, nothing happens for them? What would you say? How would you address that?
According to what he is saying, when you make your mind up, mm-hmm. things change.
things change.
You got to change here before you change out there. And like I said before, to prove it, you can't look around and see anything that wasn't imagined first, that was created by any living thing. And I would like to say the person that believe that they can't, they can, simply because everything comes from the imagination anyway.
Well, if so then you're absolutely right. So this is the thing. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, what Mr. Wallace D. Waddles is saying here is that you have to first know that everything that the universe is working in harmony with you.
Yeah, the way you
okay. And if you say something that differs, because as he eloquently wrote, and let me just show it to you in my book, because every book is different. But if you look there, if you look right there where it says the universe desires you to have everything you want. Nature is friendly to your plans. Everything is naturally for you. Make up your mind that this is true. Ladies and gentlemen, when you read that, you have to automatically know that it is you that create whatever happens to you.
Change your mind, change the situation.
Absolutely. Because
different thought pattern, different creation.
Absolutely, because how many people walk around here and say, oh, well, that'll happen for you, John, but it won't happen for me.
Mm-hmm. And then it happened the same way for everybody.
Well, no, it doesn't happen the same way for everybody.
Come from thought.
Well, exactly. Yeah, because if I say to you, John, that only good things happen for you, then what am I saying about myself? That it does only good happen to you, but not for me.
Right.
And then guess what the universe says? Your wish is my command.
Exactly.
I'm going to give you what. So this is why we have to be very careful. Absolutely. That's the reason why we have to be very careful, ladies and gentlemen, on how we speak those things, because, as they say, it's the power in our tongue. And so that's the reason why I just love how Mr. Wallace D. Waddles just kept it very simple in this chapter. He kept it was simple, but yet powerful. Okay. Let me just kind of move on. What was that area that you wanted to share, that you said that you wanted to share? And I just want to make sure, maybe is it before the passage? Are we still in the same area? Because I don't want you to go ahead of me.
Right. It was.
Okay, so I see you still looking. Are you?
No,
do you
I
have it?
had it, but I.
Okay.
I think it starts from 43.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, for all of you guys, while John Shaw is looking for the passage, but listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not read this book, only thing I can do is encourage you to read this book. Allow these words to permeate and penetrate. If you just read it, allow yourself to be open enough to read The Science of Getting Rich, you're going to be amazed that this, as I would call him, one of Abba's warriors, was very obedient and allowed himself to be used to write this message. This is the reason why it still permeates and penetrates over 100 years later. Mr. Wallace D. Waddles is a fantastic, fantastic human being.
Okay, it says, right, this deal with increase as well,
Okay, so what area?
And it's here. It says seed dropped into the ground, springs into activity, and in that act of living produces 100 seeds, right? 100 more seeds. And it says life, because the seeds is life. And it say by living by living multiplies itself, it is forever becoming more. It say it must do so if it continues to be at all.
Absolutely.
So now my thing is from this, the way it resonates, how they say life is a never-ending learning experience. And this shows that it even says in here, one fact leads you to think about other facts. one goal that you accomplish leads you to have the desire to accomplish another goal. You know, and if everybody look at their life, you know, they are constantly pursuing, if not pursuing, they want to pursue. I wish they could pursue something else. There's always a desire to go further, even if they don't put forth the effort. There's always a desire to have more money, have more health, have more knowledge, you know, more spiritual connection with the Creator. And it resonates because when you look at creation, everything you see started out small and then increased.
That's right.
Right, yeah. Right. So that's what I like. I like the words of Mr. Wallace, the Waddles. You know, it coincides with nature. You can look at nature and see exactly what he is talking about. Increase, everything increase. A person can't name anything that doesn't increase.
Absolutely.
You know, and if it's decreasing, it had increased before it decreased.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what I like about it. It's, you know, his words is profound, and it coincides with the things that I learned without reading the book. You know, so I say it like this. I take my, if I had a hat on, I'd take it off. But I don't have it on, so I just. Yeah.
Awesome. You know what? This is the reason why I love to just kind of pull back the layers. Now, listen, ladies and gentlemen, you know, again, in this book, I can barely even speak because I get so excited speaking about Mr. Wallace D. Waddles. I have broken it down based on how he positions everything. And I want you to really be able to add some insight as to Mr. Wallace D. Waddles, because this is the reason why I'm like, oh my goodness. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you will just read this book, you will begin to see this beautiful blueprint. You must read it. But something I always say too is that not only must you read the book, but you must allow the book to read you.
Exactly. Apply yourself to it.
Yes. You must allow the book to read you, because the book will meet you wherever you are. Trust me. Trust and believe what I say. The book you will not be in a space of overwhelm. The book will allow you to grow, or as you just read, become more as you're able to digest what you've already learned.
Exactly.
That's the beauty of this book. That's the beauty of this book, ladies and gentlemen. So let me go in this other area, because I just had fun in this, because it's almost like putting a puzzle together. It's almost like putting a puzzle together.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Right?
Piece by piece.
Piece by piece, right?
That picture looks beautiful.
I love it. I love it. So this is where I'm going to go here. And I don't know where it is in your book, but look where, I think I'm going to start here. So I'm going to start here. It says, you must want, so read that area to me and tell me what you're thinking.
You must want real life, not mere pleasure or sensual gratifications. Life is the performance. Life is the performance of function, and the individual really lives only when he performs. It's every function. The individual only lives when he performs every function. Say physical, mental, and spiritual, of which he is capable without access in any.
In any.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like that's, you know, it's just real, you know, you must want it, you know, and that, you know, that basically goes to the will, you know. Can't nothing exist until something will it to exist. That's a fact that I learned. Mr. Wallace D. Wallace speak about the will.
Yeah, further chapters.
In further chapters. And keeping it simple, everything is an entity with a purpose that it serves. So the action of willing is one individual action.
Mm-hmm.
Now, nothing can exist until something will it to exist. So before you create anything, you got to really want it. Just like Mr. Wallace D. Wallace says, you know.
So he says life is the performance of function.
Yeah. Yeah, you got
when he says life is the performance of function and the individual really lives only, now listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Wallace D. Waddles was saying this is how, like, actually I feel like he's living in 2019, because this is like how we would say you only live in, you can't live unless you're doing this, go big or go home. This is how we're saying this now in this day. But he was saying this back in 1910, ladies and gentlemen. He says, and the individual really lives only when he performs every function.
Physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Bingo. And he says physical, mental, and spiritual, of which he is capable, without excess in any. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, this man, this is the reason why
everybody has
it. Listen, this is the reason why I say this man was ahead. Mr. Wallace D. Waddles was ahead of his time. This book was written in 1910, ladies and gentlemen, and
better than
over 100 years ago. And here it is. This sounds like some of the things that we would say, go big or go home. You know, like some of the things that we would say,
exactly.
You know, when we're saying that, or even with me, with, you know, when I tell people to execute, he's saying to us, life is the performance of function. Just that sentence by itself, ladies and gentlemen, is a powerful sentence.
Yes, it is. You know, it's because it's action. It got to be action. You got to function a certain way. If you want to do something, you got to function. So it traps you. You know, you can't do anything without functioning.
Absolutely.
So that's what life is, and that's what I like about it. He keeps it simple.
He does.
It's not rocket science.
Yeah,
you know, but
it is. It
is a science.
It is a science, and although he keeps it very simple, but listen, ladies and gentlemen, we already know this is not taught. This is not taught.
Not in the education.
This is not taught, and this was way before. Let's think about. I mean, I know the imagination probably can't go, but in 1910, I don't even know what it was like to live in 1910, okay? I'm a 70s baby. But just think that in 1910, if you're living in 1910 and you got a hold of a book like this, okay? This was way beyond his time, all right? Now, this is the reason why I say that this book had to permeate and penetrate throughout the universe, because now, since we are more intelligent, we're now in the social media, we've got the internet, we've got all these things, that now we are more advanced and we can really understand this. But just think about the people back in 1910. He wrote this in 1910, and it wasn't a bestseller, ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't a bestseller. This book was not a bestseller.
It was above the comprehension of most of the people back in then.
Absolutely. This is why I'm saying, and this is the reason why I'm saying to you, ladies and gentlemen, we're going into a new decade. This is the time that you've got to really start transforming your mind, so then you can have the best decade yet. All right? This is important that you understand this and latch on. And I know a lot of people read the Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is the baby from this book. That book wouldn't exist if it wasn't for this book. Absolutely. If The Secret wouldn't exist if it wasn't because of this book. There's so many things that would not exist, and the list can go on and on, if it was not for this book that was written and published since 1910, way before any of us was born. Okay, so something else he says here, and I put a little footnote. I put a little footnote, and I want you to just look there. You'll see my little notes here on the side where the spiral is. And he, again, this is a map. This is a blueprint, ladies and gentlemen. He says, he talks about The 3 ways you do not want to get rich. And then he speaks about how you want to get rich.
That's heavy. That's deep.
Now, you remember that?
That's deep.
You remember that? Okay, so now, do you want to read where he began to say you do not want to get rich? I'll read the first one, and then you read the last 2, and then I want you to explain it. It's right after. It's right after. That's why you want to keep your book open so you can follow along and make it a little easier. Do you find it? You do not want to get rich. Okay, so I'm going to read the first one, and then you're going to read the last 2.
All right.
Okay, so you do not want to get rich. Now listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to this. He says, you do not want to get rich in order to live swinishly for the gratification of animal desires. That is not life, but the performance of every physical function. There's the word function again.
Gotta have some magic.
Exactly. Is a part of life. And no one lives completely who denies the impulses of the body a normal and healthful expression. Now read the next 2.
Okay. You say you do not want to get rich solely to enjoy mental pleasure, to get knowledge, to gratify
ambition.
To gratify ambition, to outshine others, to be famous. All these are a legitimate part of life, but the man who lives for the pleasure of the intellect alone will never have will only have a partial life, and he will never be satisfied with his life.
Wow. And then read the next one. Okay. You do not want to get rich.
You do not want to get rich solely for the good of others, to lose yourself for the salvation of mankind, to experience the joy of philanthropy. Philanthropy. And sacrifice. Say the joy of the soul are only a part of life, and they are no better or noble than any other part.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, what would you want to say about those 3 areas where he talks specifically? He's giving us a blueprint. Again, ladies and gentlemen, a blueprint. You do not want to get rich because of this and this and this. What do you have to say based on what he said there?
Okay. I basically see the law of repetition playing a role in this, and I really see where you must have a complete thought that's in harmony with the will of the Creator, and you can't have a selfish intent, without the Creator involved. Because you can't live for gratification of your animal instinct or stuff of that nature. Now, what resonates to me on this is this, the law of repetition. If you have that type of lifestyle and that's what you're living for, the intellect and all of that, right? You basically will never tap into the absolute truth, because you will only be thinking as far as you can think. You see what I'm saying?
So when he says you do not want to get rich, what happens when he tells us in the blueprint as to why you do not want to get rich? Like he was talking about the gratification of animal desires. You do not want to get rich to outshine others or to be famous. You do not want to get rich solely for the good of others, to lose yourself for the salvation of mankind. Because how many people lose themselves? How many celebrities that we can name right now that have literally lost their lives, that's no longer living with us because they've gotten caught up
in their own way of thinking, that limited way, of that non-universal way of thinking. that way of thinking where they can't see what you might say, the spiritual side of life, spirituality in life. So, it's necessary for you to be able to actually observe something and see the full meaning of it, to see it as a whole, its entirety. You can't see the entirety if you don't have spiritual insight, if you don't have what you might say, universal laws and principles to actually base your judgment on. And if you don't have that, you're going to run into a dead end. You're going to say life is not worth living. There's no way out of this. I'm trapped. Nobody can help me.
Because you've gotten rich based on his blueprint. Like he says, you do not want to get rich in order to these things. So when you take
it to your fullest.
Your highest version of yourself. It will not allow you to get to your highest version of yourself when you decide to get rich for those purposes. Now, where he does say, this is where he says here, ladies and gentlemen, right after that, he says, you want to get rich in order that you may eat, drink, and be merry when it is time to do these things, in order that you may surround yourself with beautiful things, see distant lands, feed your mind, and develop your intellect.
Definitely.
He says, in order that you may love men and do kind things.
Exactly.
And be able to play a good part in helping the world to find truth.
Truth. They say ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And see, this is why I say, what do you have to say about that? Because I love what he tells us. And a lot of times you're reading things, it'll tell you what not to do, but then it doesn't tell you what to do. Right. But he tells you, he gives you both sides. He gives you the
solution.
Absolutely, the pros and the cons of both. So when he says you want to get rich, it reminds me of the conversation that we were just having the other day with John Shaw's friend, which is also my friend too, Tyrone Williams. And Tyrone was just talking about going to Africa, right?
Exactly.
See, and then I began to say to Tyrone, I was like, well, hey, like Erykah Badu says, you better call Tyrone. So, but here it is. I said to Tyrone, if you remember, John, I said, and this coincides with what Mr. Wallace D. Waddle says. Listen to what he says again. He says, you want to get rich in order that you may eat, drink, and be merry when it is time to do the things, in order that you may surround yourself with beautiful things, see distant lands. What were we just talking about? Africa.
Traveling the world.
Yeah. And I said, if I have the desire to go to Milan and go to the runway shows in Milan, I'm going to say, hey, Tyrone, are we going to take your jet, John's jet, or my jet? Or as you said, we'll just meet each other there.
Yeah.
Will it?
I get it in my jet.
You get it.
Tyrone get it.
And we
same destiny.
Absolutely. But see, this is what he's talking about. So you can be merry, so you can eat and drink what you desire. Exactly. So you can see distant lands where it's not even a question if you want to get up and go, or if you do want to build that school like has Oprah done over there in Africa. If you say, hey, I want to do what Akon is doing, and as we were talking about, investing in solar, make a positive difference. You want to be able to do those things, and why not? That's the reason why you wish to, as he says, you want to get rich. So then you can do those things.
Without a shadow.
So you can see yourself in conversation. I've already seen myself in conversation with Akon and saying, hey, Akon, hey, yes, I want to invest into that solar that you've been telling everybody about. But again, that's the reason why you want to get rich, so then you can be able to do those things.
Exactly. So if you need money to buy different materials.
Yes.
And it just, like the question like this, right? If you ask anybody on this planet, would life be easier or more easier with money or without money? And 99.9% of the people will say, I think it'll be easier with money because I can pay my rent, I can pay my bills, if somebody needs something, I can actually help them out. If I want to travel, go places, I can catch a plane, I can buy my plane. I mean, everything that there is, basically that a person has to offer involves some money, Now, I know without a shadow of a doubt, that's mind over matter. You can make things happen. But if I'm sitting here concentrating on a Bentley just manifesting in front of me right now, I'm just concentrating. And I just say, I'm gonna just keep concentrating on it. But if I got the money, I can go down to the Bentley place and say, I like that car.
And I like it, and I want it now. and then no, in fact, when you have to go there, you just call them and say, I want my Bentley to be delivered. Okay? To be delivered.
Yeah, we didn't even have to think about it.
You wouldn't even have to think about it. Because that's why he says you want to get rich that you may eat, drink, and be merry when it's time to do those things in order that you may listen to the words that he say, that you may surround yourself with beautiful things. Beautiful things, that you may see distant lands. Feed your mind and develop your intellect.
If you don't develop your intellect, how are you going to see different visions?
Absolutely.
How are you going to be sure about your decision making? You got to constantly add to your Rolodex, add that wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, so we can basically see farther and further. Because in order for you to see farther and further, you got to have a vision.
Absolutely.
Without the vision, people perish.
Our people will perish.
And that's why.
Absolutely.
Because everything come into existence after it's visualized. Something that was real simple, but just real quick. Everything must be visualized first. And everything that we see created by any living thing except change has weight and occupied space.
Is it okay? And where did you find that in Wallace D. Wallace?
Basically from the formless substance.
Okay, so we're going back to chapter 3. So let's go back, reference chapter 3, because people who are reading it along with us. So let's go back to chapter 3. So you want to go back to chapter 3? You have something you want to share on chapter 3?
Just the conclusion, and then chapter 3 are basically the same thing.
So so find it in chapter 3 as to what you wanted to say, because we want to reference the book. Definitely. Yeah, we want to be able to reference the book.
The conclusion and
of chapter 3. Okay.
Let me go right here.
So while you're doing that, I want to make sure that, let me go to another area, because I want him to find that area, because again, we are studying from the book here, and we want 23. Okay, yeah, but just find that, and then I'll get back with you. But let me just kind of go over a couple of other things, ladies and gentlemen. See, this is real. This is why studying is so important. This is the reason why that's why we're here with our books, because thoughts come in and different thoughts come in, and we want to make sure that you guys can follow along with us, especially for those of you who have your book, so then you can make reference as well. And be able to understand what we're speaking about. And chapter 3 is one of my favorite chapters, is opportunity monopolized. So let me just share something else that Mr. Wallace D. Wallace spoke about in chapter 5. He says, get rid of the idea. It's almost like he has to say it again to you, because it's like, he wants to make sure that this permeates and penetrates. Get rid of the idea that God wants you to sacrifice yourself for others, and that you can secure his favor by doing so. God requires nothing of the kind. How many people John, have you heard where they would say that, they believe that God is requiring them to sacrifice everything? This is why he says you got to get rid of the idea that God wants you to sacrifice yourself for others. This mind conditioning that we have been taught. And sometimes it's usually taught in more other cultures than in others, that you have to sacrifice yourself. And if you're not sacrificing yourself, then, oh my God, God is not going to be pleased with you. But Wallace D. Waddell says it so eloquently. He says, get rid of the idea that God wants you to sacrifice yourself for others and that you can secure his favor by doing so. God requires nothing of the kind. If that was a myth in your head, right? If that's a myth that you had in your head, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Wallace D. Waddles in 1910 dispelled that myth. He says God requires nothing of the kind.
Nothing of the kind. Nothing of the kind. He doesn't want you to. Okay, if God didn't want you to have money, why would they require 10%? I mean, it says in the Bible that you must give 10% of your earnings. Okay, if money was bad, why God want it? You see what I'm saying? And if
and why God left it here for us to be able to live and enjoy and live beautifully.
Exactly. And have the intellect to actually use it wisely.
And use it wisely. Yeah, be a good steward.
Be a good steward, right? And my thing is I'll say it 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
If a person reads this book, it won't be a waste of time. It'll add something to their life. I know universal physics, but I've ran into some things here that actually made me think about other things as far as what I was about to read about the formless substance.
Okay, so then let's go to chapter 3 and show me where you're going to go into chapter 3, because now we're going to reference again, this formless substance is opportunity monopolized in chapter 3. Let me just show you guys this real quick, because again, I like for those of you who may not, this is chapter 3. We're going to just reference chapter 3. So show me the area that you're going to reference here.
Right here, it say, everything you see on earth is made from the original substance, out of which all things proceed.
Got it.
All things. It's the original substance that all things proceed. And it tells you new forms are constantly being made, and older ones are dissolving. You see, but all are shapes assumed by one thing. Now, here it says there's no limit to the supply of formless stuff. It's our original substance. The universe is made out of it. It's saying that formless substance is what the stars, the planets, the trees, the animals, the birds, the earth, air, fire, and water is made from the same substance. But from our understanding of it is this substance take the shape of the things that you have in your imagination. So when you say the universe is made out of it, it says but it was not all used in making the universe. It's the space. The spaces in, through, and between the forms, of the invisible universe are permeated and filled with the original substance. So what I was saying is that everything in the universe that you see that coincide with this had to be visualized first, and everything that you see basically has weight and occupies space, anything but change. So the material substance, the formless substance is what manifests into the image of your idea. It's just like saying in so many words that the formless substance had to be something that's made from an idea itself and put there to take shape and form of all of these things that we see right now. So basically, that's what I was just saying. The two universal facts prove that it's mind over matter. And this shows that it must happen in the mind and then the matter takes shape and form.
Well, listen, Mr. Wallace D. Waddles is on to something. This book
Definitely.
is just phenomenal because, this is why I say in chapter 3, I'm of the belief that when he spoke about is opportunity monopolized, this is when, the seatbelts came on.
Take it to another level.
This is when you were, going at high level speed, because this is where he began to say, okay, no more spoon feeding. It is time to get to work. And so from chapter 3 on, he just showed up to show out. And so this man spoke things and was able to, I believe in my, I never read this anywhere. This is just of my belief that he was used as a vessel. And that's why I call him as one of Abba's preserved warriors, because he was way ahead of his time, and to write such a profound writing in 1910, and it still permeates and penetrates now. This is beyond. This is totally beyond. So this is the reason why I so agree with you. I love the formless substance. I love the original substance. I love the fact that he says that there are new forms constantly being made, because I so believe it. And again, it is also mindset too, John, because there are a lot of people that will believe that it's not enough. It's not, I've got to get you before I get got. And how many people that walk around here that have this mentality that I got to compete against you, I got to get you before you get me.
Millions of people.
And because they don't understand, as even Mr. Wallace D. Waddles says in his book, The Science of Getting Rich, that, you don't have to compete. There's no such thing. There's no reason why to throw the ladder behind you, throw the ladder down behind you, because there's no need for competition. No need for competition. Because until you understand that there are new forms are constantly being made and older ones are dissolving, but all are shapes assumed by one thing. Until you really get that, this mindset and this way that we think and believe and how we walk on planet Earth will determine. The reason why I can speak so highly about Mr. John Shaw and speak about how he shows up on planet Earth and how he's also known as Mr. First 360, and Elder 360 and all the massive things that he's done, is because I understand it's not about competition. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, he has gifts that was only given to him, ladies and gentlemen. And my gifts are given to me. And the reason why we can work so well together, because it's not about competing. It's not about competing over here. It's about us coming together.
And completing.
That's
not competing.
In the words of Oprah, that's a tweet. Yes, it's about completing, not competing. Oh, I like that. I like that. Hello. I gotta put that down. It is not about competing, it's about completing. Because if you get out of that mindset of competition, and that's what he speaks about in the entire book, that's why I'm so happy that you did mention about the new forms and about the formless substance. Go ahead.
Okay, when
I love it.
Yeah, when you really look at it, the formless substance viewpoint, it brings you in a state of mind that everything is not gone.
Mm-hmm.
All the money is not monopolized.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they say, I think 87%, what it was, 87% of all the money on the planet has been situated where it would never get to a certain part of the public. And we are fighting over 13% of the money. So if you look at it from that point of view, you will say, oh man, it's not, you know, I never get as much money as the other people got over that money that's has the fence around it, you know, and they won't get out of that particular box or that particular environment. But when you see the substance that money came from, 87%, you know, say now, wait a minute. Here's the substance that Wallace D. Wattles talking about that took shape and form of all that richness and money and whatever. And it's still there.
Absolutely.
And only thing is waiting on is for me to impress my vision upon it. And then it takes and transforms, manifests from an unseen state into what my vision is, right? So when you see the formless, when you see the formless substance, you'll say, but they don't have all the houses. They don't have all the money. They don't have all the money.
Absolutely not.
You know, only because it's there waiting to be created, just like it was created in the beginning.
Absolutely. And so let me just say this in chapter 3, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Wallace D. Wattles says nature, see, look how stuff just starts to maneuver. We start off in chapter 5, but somehow it's like the universe is really saying that we need to also talk about chapter 3 too.
Bring up that point.
You know, because it all coincides. All coincides together. Something that Mr. Wallace D. Wattles said in chapter 3, ladies and gentlemen, again, this is chapter 3. He says, nature is an inexhaustible, to piggyback on what John Shaw said, nature is an inexhaustible storehouse of riches. The supply will never run short.
Never.
Original substance is alive with creative energy and is constantly producing more forms. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, Wallace D. Wattles already said this, ladies and gentlemen. Look, the very first paragraph right there. That's where I'm reading from. Ladies and gentlemen. Right there. Nature is an inexhaustible storehouse of riches. So why do we have this mindset on believing that there's not enough?
Because we have been taught to think in a certain way.
Ooh. Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, that's why we believe.
Yes.
That, you know?
We were taught, we were conditioned, we were trained to think in a certain way. And this is the reason why Mr. Wallace D. Wattles is basically taking all of this warped mind, this teaching, this I would say it's almost like you're walking around like a zombie because you're not even aware that you're not even awake.
Right.
And this is the reason why his teachings are so pronounced and so paramount, because he's allowing us to he's allowing us to begin to think in the right way. Exactly. And in his way, he speaks about doing things in a certain way, because when you are so mind conditioned to believe all of this warped stuff that I gotta get you before it get got, I gotta get this
all gone.
Because it's because John just keeps getting all the best things, so I gotta get him before I get got. Instead of knowing that nature is an inexhaustible storehouse of riches, the supply will never run short.
And it's friendly.
And it's friendly.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That is right. I want to talk about one other particular thing, and we're going to wrap this up because what you're going to do, you have to come back for part 2 or part 5.
Sure.
But I want to say this because we were speaking about this. And I want to make sure I'm back to chapter 5, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back to chapter 5. And this is where I want to leave off with, okay? I want to read 2 areas. No, in fact, I want to read several areas on this particular page. And I just want to show it to you first. And this is how we're going to end this particular section. And then we will continue with this particular part of chapter 5 when you come back. We'll make it a part 2. But this particular area I want you to see my little squiggies where it says intelligent substance, and then it goes talk about competition versus creation. You see there, you see my little words on the side that says wishful eyes and all of that. This is where I'm going to deal with, and this is how we're going to end this particular wrap up, because we've been speaking about competition. We've been speaking about there's no need for it. And this is the reason why this book is so profound. And chapter 5, Increasing Life, Mr. Wallace D. Waddles goes in deep. He dives in deep. And this is where we're going to do. We're going to finish this part here. I don't know where it is in your book. We're going to start where it says intelligent substance. And we're not going to miss anything. I want all of this to be read here. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring this down because, again, people have the mindset of, I got to get God. I got to get you before I get God. This warped
competition.
And I don't even know. That's not even proper.
I gotta knock you off the heel.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's not even proper even English about I got to get you to get God and all this other stuff. But that's just the word. This is what they would say. So this is what I want to say here. Intelligent substance will make things for you, but it will not take things away from someone else and give them to you. Now listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. I need you to get this. I need you to get this. I need you to hear this. Mr. Wallace D. Waddles says, intelligent substance will make things for you, but it will not take things away from someone else and give them to you. How many people you know that thinks that way?
Many of them. Many of them say, I sure want what they got. I'm going to get that. I'm going to con them out of it. I'm going to make sure that I have it in my possession, some way, shape, fashion. My God. Right, and that's the way a lot of people think. I remember one guy was telling me how to keep your money. Right, he said if you go out and take it, and it's yours. Then they say you put a fence around it and you block it. Keep people from getting in. Wow. And you can have it, right? But I told him about reaping and sowing, and the thing that I got him in. He said, "Oh, that don't make no sense, because it's impossible to find something in the universe that doesn't repeat the same basic patterns over and over again. So if you sow, you got to reap. Now, intelligent substance have enough sense to know that sowing and reaping is real. So the intelligent substance isn't going to take something from somebody.
It doesn't have to.
Right. But I'm saying it wouldn't do it because it has the sense to know what goes around comes around. So why would I go around taking something from somebody and say,
and then that's going against the universal law. The universal law.
It's smart enough not to do that.
It's very smart, and that's why it's called the intelligent substance, ladies and gentlemen, because this is the thing.
It does the right thing.
It does the right thing, and that's the reason why we have to continue to do things in a certain way as well.
Follow the example.
Absolutely. Now, this is where he gets into. Mr. Wallace D. Waddles says you must get rid of the thought of competition.
Definitely.
You are to create. Now listen to this. It sounds like he's a parent right here, because I say it sounds like my parent is talking to me.
Nice.
He says you are to create, not to compete for what is already created. He says you are to create, not to compete for what is already created. Bingo.
And it must be some wisdom behind it.
That sounds like a parent. I mean, he got in parent mode. He was like it's almost like he is doing this to us to say, stop it with this competition, everybody.
Exactly.
Stop it. You don't need to do that.
It's a hinder.
Absolutely. He tells us here, he says, you are to create. And see, this is the reason why
it's not necessary.
It's never necessary. If you look at it very closely and you see people who are constantly competing, they may look like they're winning, but they're not winning. It may appear that they're winning, but they're not winning. Because as he says, you ought to create, not to compete for what is already created. Why are you competing for something that's already created?
Exactly. And then why are you competing when competing puts you at opposition, you know? And if two forces are at opposition, they automatically be destroyed. Both of them.
All both.
Yeah, because for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if I'm in competition, I'm working out a way to try to prevent you from doing this. Well, I'm hindering myself. I'm preparing that for that same situation to be for me to experience. Somebody working against me and all. But if you're in harmony and you completing, you know, then when everything come around, everybody basically go higher and higher in every way.
Everyone who is in a creation mindset. Yeah. Everyone who's in a creation mindset goes higher and higher.
Higher and higher.
The people who are constantly competing, it may look like they are thriving, but they are not.
That's right.
Because again, as he says, there is no need to compete for what is already created.
Exactly.
He says, you do not have to take anything away from anyone. You do not have to drive sharp bargains.
Right, exactly.
He says, you do not have to cheat. How many people do we know that are cheaters? You do not have to cheat or to take advantage. How many people we know that love to take advantage of other people? He says, you do not need to let any man work for you for less than he earns. How is that? Do you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? He says, let me read that part again. You do not have to cheat or take advantage of.
It's not necessary.
It's not necessary. He says, you do not need to let any man work for you for less than he earns. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, this is not AnneHumphrey words. This is not John Shaw words. This is Mr. Wallace D. Waddles. You see it there up underneath where I wrote down competition versus creation. Right there, you do not have to, right there, that particular line. This here, ladies and gentlemen, he makes it quite clear. You do not have to drive sharp bargains. You don't have to do that. Now, then he goes on to say, you do not have to covet the property of others.
You don't got to do it.
Or to look at it with wishful eyes.
You don't have to. If you don't got to, well, what make him say that? If you don't have to. You know what I mean? It's got to be some logical reasoning, some information that make him say that it's not necessary. And just something that it's a natural law of the universe. And what conclusion I come to with the information that I have received and from that coincide with this book, the two laws, every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, the law of repetition or the law of reciprocity. They are judge and jury. So if I'm the type of person I'm always trying to create situations to make things better for me and worse for the other, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. I have prepared that for myself, that position.
Well, then that means that you would be saying that if you were the person that had wishful eyes, if you were looking to others with wishful eyes.
Somebody doing me the same way.
Right. It's because
there's
no need to do that.
Right.
Because then that's coming from a competition mindset.
Right. And then, sowing and reaping. You know, you gotta reap what you sow. So if you in that particular mode, then your life is going to constantly be reaping things of people.
Everything that you created. Everything that you created, you're going to constantly reap it.
You're going to run into people with the same intent to beat you out of stuff, to set things up.
And that's why he says you do not have to drive sharp bargains. So let me finish reading this area here. He says, you do not have to covet the property of others or to look at it with wishful eyes. He says, no man has anything of which you cannot have the like.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Because the formless substance is there. And you got the ability to visualize, concentrate on it manifesting, you know, with the Creator just will for that formless substance to manifest into everything that you need. And then it began to take shape and form. And only then. Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt. So that's why I like Wallace D.
Oh, honey, listen, Mr. Wallace D. Wattles is phenomenal. And then he goes on to say, and that without taking what he has away from him. So let me read that part again, because I want you guys to get this. I want you guys to get it. He says, you do not have to covet the property of others or to look at it with wishful eyes. Right. No man has anything of which you cannot have the like. And that without taking what he has away from him. Now, this is what he says. You are to become a creator, not a competitor. You are going to get what you want, but in such a way that when you get it, every other man will have more than he has now.
That's clever, and that's the right way to live.
That's the only way to live.
Advice, Mr. Wallace D.
Mr. Wallace D. Wattles, this is just so awesome. This is so awesome. You know what? Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you guys so very much for taking the time out. John and I kind of went from chapter 5 to chapter 3 to other chapters to chapter 1, because I even talk about chapter 1, because everything coincides with one another. Exactly. All right. So this is what I want to do. I want to call this particular area here what we're about to do, because we're not going to just let you go just yet. Although we're going to do part 2 of chapter 5, because chapter 5 is just that deep. And we're going to have John back on the show, Mr. Elder 360 himself, to come back on the show. It's going to be so awesome. So now, this is what I want to do. Mr. John Shaw has no idea that this was coming up, but I have 3 rapid fire questions for you. Okay, because as you already know, we're studying the science of getting rich, and everything, it has to permeate and penetrate. Here, the science of getting rich. Again, we do not own the rights at all. The All Show does not own the rights. This is Mr. Wallace D. Wattles writing. Okay, so now, we're going to go into the rapid fire questions. I have 3 of them.
Okay.
What is your definition of science?
My definition of science is basically a field where you have facts and not just theory, but you have facts that lined up together. And it says science is it's something that's created by observation and seeing the truth about a thing. A science is a diagram, of subject matter that is accurate, that is eternal, unchanging. It's like something that is profound,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that is what you might say a illustration for people to follow and learn. I think science is something that is eternal,
Mm.
you know,
Okay.
necessary because it can be what you might say the blueprint
Mm-hmm.
to teach those that are born, the newborn. And basically, once they learn the science, then they basically have a blueprint of life, have a vision of how things really is, you know. So I would say science
Mm-hmm.
is a wealth of facts discovered
Okay.
and composed
All right.
um, that is unchanging,
Mm-hmm.
you know, supernatural.
Okay.
Um, when I say supernatural, I mean something that is natural,
Mm-hmm.
extremely powerful,
Mm-hmm.
and unchanging.
Science
Science is facts.
I like it. Whoa.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
That was good, ladies and gentlemen. That was good.
That's what it is.
So my second rapid fire question to you is, why do you do what you do?
I do what I do simply because I want to help free all people from physical, mental, spiritual, and financial slavery with a universal message. I do what I do because of my condition as a human being and as a race of people.
Mm-hmm.
I want to bring a light that actually will cause individuals to see that they are supernatural beings, that they are co-creators, you know, and basically, I want to see the world in a better state. I really want to see peace on the planet. I really want to see people willing the best for each other. And this is why I teach about the willpower, vibrations, intelligence, concentrating and focusing, the law of repetition, the law of favorable action. There's an equal and opposite reaction, because I know that those subjects would cause them to actually be able to see things they can't see with the human eye and see the mechanics of the universe. I do what I do because I promised God that I would share what was given to me in meditation, and it coincides with Wallace D. Wattles. And you know, I want to leave an example, a legacy, to show that, hey, this is one of the people that God used to actually make a major change, a positive change in the lives of the people on the planet. That's what I do.
Okay. Well, I did have another question, what type of impact you're wanting to make upon planet Earth, but he's already answered it. It's almost like he already knew what I was going to ask the third question. You know what?
Universal.
Listen, I have to say it was such an honor having you here on the All Show.
It was a pleasure. Basically, it was highly anticipated.
Yes.
And I know that this will catapult me and many others that get a chance to see this show that we have done.
Absolutely. Well, you know what, Mr. John Shaw, it was definitely awesome. As I said to you, and I'm going to say to the audience, we're going to do a part 2 because, I mean, hey, we just dive deep. And one thing about this work of Mr. Wallace D. Wattles, everything coincides. Every chapter coincides with another. So we're going to do part 2 of chapter 5. Are you willing to come back to the All Show? Are you going to come back? Well, you know what? This is so awesome. I have to say that it was such a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your insight. Thank you for being here. And more importantly, this is so awesome, ladies and gentlemen, because he's also a part of the Science of Getting Rich group that I have created. And I know in my mind, I have just this big, huge, gigantic belief that we are all rising into becoming the better version of ourselves, but also the new thought leaders of planet Earth.
Without
and that's
a
one of the
doubt.
things that I have already put into the group, right?
No doubt about it.
Yeah. So John Shaw, thank you so much.
It's been
Thank
my
you
pleasure.
for being here, and we will see you the next time.
My pleasure, and may all that may the best vibrations from the intelligence that govern the entire universe be upon us to attract nothing but the best. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Have a good one, John
Pleasure's
Shaw.
all mine.
Have a good one. Have a good one. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we just had a fantastic show with John Shaw. I do want to share a couple of announcements. As you already know, that I will be taking care of Chapter 5 again. We're going to have Mr. John Shaw, Elder 360, back with us. We're going to finish up Chapter 5, so it's going to give you something to look forward to. And again, for all of you who are not reading this book, I'm not getting paid by Mr. Wallace D. Waddle's estate. I don't know any of his family members or et cetera. So I just believe in this work. His work still permeates and penetrates to this day. So I encourage each and every one of you to read The Science of Getting Rich. You have nothing to lose, so much to gain. All right. So here's a couple announcements that I want to make sure that I, just share before I close out this segment. Now, for all of you who are part of the Science of Getting Rich Facebook group page, as you already know, that is a private group. And although we're doing this video live in the group, I will transfer this video to the YouTube page so then everyone on all social media platforms, etc., will be able to view this fantastic conversation and engagement that we had with the one and only Mr. John Shaw. I just want to also make sure that for those of you who are part of this group, this fantastic group, I just put up in the group a couple of days ago stating, are you ready 2020? I didn't ask you the question. I asked the vibration of 2020. Why? Why do I ask that? Because I know, I believe in my heart of hearts. I just have this humongous idea that when we come together, shoulder to shoulder, arm to arm, knee to knee, and we come together, we study this work, we become this work, we are the work, we are the science, that we will be able to elevate, rise to our highest levels. And the reason why I said, are you ready 2020? Because I'm telling 2020, the newest decade, the first decade that I'm able to see and be able to know that I'm actually seeing in a spiritual seeing. That's a difference. I mean, of course, I've had other decades, but I mean, in a spiritual seeing, I'm saying to 2020, you better watch out, because here are new thought leaders. We are rising. We are training. God has put us right in front of you, and you don't even know that we're right here. See, that's the beauty of it, because it's not that we're not here. We're here, but we're like getting trained. We're getting armored. And so I said to 2020, and I made the declaration, are you ready 2020? Because I honestly believe with this work, with Mr. Wallace D. Waddles, who wrote this book, and of course, as I said, my two favorite books for me is the Bible and The Science of Getting Rich. With this work, I honestly believe that there's a rise of new leaders. There's a rise of a new thought. And I believe in my heart of hearts that the people that are part of the Science of Getting Rich, it's only about 8 of us, that Mr. Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook is going to call me directly and say, hey, Ann, what are you guys doing over there? If you want to be with a group, if you desire to be with people who are thinking so large, so huge, that's on a trajectory of nothing but greatness, I encourage you, I invite you today to join the group. We're not just looking for anyone. I am not just selecting anyone. You have to be ready. You have to be really serious about this work. It's not about quantity to me. It's about quality and about your truest commitment to studying the science. Another announcement that I wanted to say is that I also believe that 1 billion lives we will touch. See, ladies and gentlemen, it's not about just learning this work so then you can be great. It's about learning this work so you can spread it globally. And I honestly believe, in my humble opinion, that when myself and others like John Shaw, Mr. Elder 360, and the others who are there, if we really take this work seriously, no telling what the formless substance will create because of our truest commitment and strongest desire to do this work and to continue to doing this work. Because as you already know, there are people that's already doing work like this. All right. So if you are really serious and you want to learn more, I encourage you to join our group. And of course, there will be a vetting process because I'm not just looking for anyone. I'm looking for those people who are willing and who is ready to go to the next level. A second announcement I have is Sabrina Hill-Felix. Hello, Sabrina. I am so excited that Sabrina Hill and we will be meeting sometime in the very near future. And because I really see Sabrina Hill-Felix with a wonderful gift. And I want to be able to have you, Sabrina, as I've already said, to be able to do something great and grand within the group. We will discuss more of that. I will keep it under the wraps right now because I do have some ideas, but I just wanted to give you a quick shout out on this video message. And back in October 12th, I created a logo, a mastermind logo for the Science of Getting Rich. I encourage all of you who are part of the group to look back at that logo because we are soon, 2020 is coming. 2020 is not waiting on anybody, ladies and gentlemen. So I want you guys to take a look at that logo. And more importantly, the reason I'm wanting you to look at that logo because I did it in a very raw image, but I want you to take a look at it because there is something else that's going to come after that. Again, we are ramping up for 2020. The masterminders themselves, the Science of Getting Rich, we are ramping up for 2020. Okay? All right. So that's all that I have to say right now. Again, wasn't John Shaw just the greatest? You guys are going to love him. I encourage you. For all of my YouTubers, my Instagrammers, I want you to follow him. I will have his information below in my YouTube video, so you can simply follow him. He also has an ebook. I just purchased it. I'm sorry I'm not able to show it to you, but I just purchased it. I encourage you to do the same. All of his information will be below this video that you'll be able to follow him, contact him, because he is truly one of the masters. You really want to connect with him. Again, I thank you for watching. I am AnneHumphrey of The All Show, the creator of the Science of Getting Rich. Thank you for stopping by. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Bye-bye now.